way, race fans and other drivers, we're trying to sell things here at the Pelkey Palace.
Oh,
So if you would like to have some Gorilla Glue, it adds extra
Put that
to the
back.
racetracks. You just
Put
need to
it
have
back
one
where
drop
you
of it.
found it.
So just contact the Pelkey Palace for some shipping details.
If you're not a fan of dry slick, just rub a little of that onto your right rear and you'll have enough tack in the first couple laps. Then it'll get a little slicked over.
Racing advice from Jessup Pelkey.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Track Packers podcast for episode 2 of season 2. Thank you so much for joining us, whether you're listening on the various streaming platforms or watching us on Facebook and now YouTube. So for all you video watchers out there, you can view us on whatever platform you'd like. And so you get to look at our bright shining faces, and we have everyone here. We have the lovely Miss Becca Pelkey to my left, the quizzical and knowledgeable John Breckel down to the corner, and the always funny and witty Mr. Jessup Pelkey rounding out the lineup for today's episode. Mr. Jessup, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty dang good, Mason. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's been a good start to the year. I'm all motivated. We'll see how long that motivation lasts, but now once this season gets closer, it'll get back up again. So, John, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. And by the way, race fans, just like that, all of a sudden Mason's motivation is gone. Oh, sorry. No, I'm doing great as well. I am down visiting the Pelkeys tonight. So as you can see, Becca's got some very nice Jeff Gordon memorabilia. With that stuff. If anybody's interested, we are selling these pieces as well. So just let us know. And
actually, we could sell them. We
No.
do need to make more space for things.
No.
Yep, see, we're both in agreement on that as
No.
well. But no, Mason, other than that, I'm doing just great this evening.
Great. Miss Becca, how are you doing today?
I'm a little stressed because John keeps trying to sell my stuff and it's freaking me out. So no, I'm good actually. It's been a busy off season ever since January has rolled around. To me, it's the start of the season because I'm usually working on a lot of things behind the scenes. So it's already been a busy January, and February will be here before we know it.
Absolutely. And I'm doing pretty well. Been trying to crank out some highlight videos for this month and trying to get some bigger projects started, hopefully, as the spring goes along. And I've already been watching some racing, so that's been exciting too. And so, if you folks out there want to do us a favor, give us a like, share, give us a comment, let us know you're watching. We'd greatly appreciate it. If you have like a cardboard cutout yourself that we can replace Jeff Gordon with, that would be also lovely too.
Mason, don't forget to tell them to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast.
Yes,
This is true.
5-star.
And if you leave us a 5-star review, I will read it live on air, regardless of what it says.
Wow, that's a bold claim, but hey, let's go along with it. Let's drop the green flag on episode 2, and we're gonna vary up the order.
I literally dropped the green flag.
Ooh, that's a caution. Ooh.
Caution on John. He dropped the green flag.
Well, Mason said to drop the green flag, so I decided to drop it. I think the caution should be on Mason.
You can't drop it on the track, John. You gotta.
Mason,
You have
this
to hold on
relegates
to your
John
flag.
to the back of the pack early in the first lap. So what is the
I
running
did
order
follow
right now?
instructions.
Well, right now Becca is in the lead because she's on the pole. I'm in second. Jessup moves to the third, and John moves to the back of the pack, which actually is pretty advantageous because you kind of want to see where the good groove and the good line is. So he's probably got a good advantage right now.
Yep, I'll watch Mason more than Becca because Becca usually swerves all over the place.
Yeah, good point. So we're going to move into who or what are you repping for episode 2. And I'm going to start with Mr. Jessup Pelkey. Who or what are you repping for this episode?
I'm representing old Josh Skorshevsky t-shirt in one of his first late model designs, mainly because right now there's a lot of late model racing going on, and I enjoy a lot of late model stuff. So that's what I'm repping today.
Yeah, I
And then I'm
remember when
also
you made.
wearing my Volusia Speedway hat because
Ooh, yeah.
the World of Outlaws kicked off, and Devin Moran won his second World of Outlaw late model race tonight. And yeah, so big fun action for everybody.
Yeah, I remember when Josh transitioned from, I believe he was racing Midwest mods before
Correct.
going into late models, and he's been racing that for the last several years. Had a really good points finish last year for national points in Wissota. So very good season for Josh Skorchevsky in the 2S. I will move to John. Who or what are you repping for this episode?
So I went kind of back in the archives a little bit, but I also thought, you know what, late model racing is starting up here to start off the 2023 season. So I am repping the 4th annual John Seitz Memorial shirt. It's one of the yellow ones, one of my favorite colors from the Seitz shirts. And on the back of it is the winners, which the defending champion at that time was Pat Dorr. So Pat Dorr is on the back of this shirt, back for his win during the 3rd annual John Seitz Memorial.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I mean, how many years has Pat Dorr been racing?
A lot.
A lot.
It's a good answer. It's a good answer. Miss Becca, who or what are you repping?
Well, sticking with the late model theme and tying in with John's shirt, and none of this was planned, I swear. I am repping the Door Daddy himself, Pat Dorr. I actually got this shirt at the Silver 1000 last year and chit-chatted with Pat for a little bit, but he did really well at the Silver 1000, finishing runner-up. So yeah, tonight I'm representing Pat Dorr in the, yeah.
Apparently I
And
missed
yeah.
the memo on late model shirts tonight.
Only the cool kids, Mason. Only the cool kids. The rest of us just go elsewhere.
I guess. So I guess I'm the lone wolf. I don't have a late model shirt. Kind of going a little bit back. I don't know if Jessup would recognize this driver, but I think John, maybe Becca will. I'm repping the 1A Sean Anderson. He
Yes.
drove an IMCA modified back in the mid 2010s. Mainly kind of during like the oil boom. We had a lot of racers come up and come out of the woodworks to race, and he's a pretty successful racer. He was up in the front, raced in Minot. We raced in Mandan a few times. So one of my favorite shirts. I don't wear it much anymore, but kind of the front, and then we got the back. Yeah, he would travel
That's a
down to
nice
Arizona
back.
and out west. Yeah,
He would do a lot of traveling in the wintertime, but then he was always on tour. So he always just do the Dakota Classic Modified Tour and other of those events as well.
yeah, and I honestly I haven't heard
to
a
Sean?
lick of him in
Yeah, I was gonna
years.
say, I wonder whatever happened to him. So, and also just to let all of our viewers know too, this is what Becca just wanted to be like me tonight. That's why she wore a Pat Dorr shirt.
No.
I mean, John's a good role model to follow. So I mean,
This is true. Very true.
I want you to know, Mason, I picked my shirt before anybody else picked shirts.
Yeah. See, Becca must have got a preview of mine beforehand, and she just she decided to match it.
No. You wore a NASCAR hoodie the whole time I saw you before we started filming. So
Which
no.
honestly, race fans, if you want to, this is a great time, and drivers out there as well, to do like a little comment section for us on the podcast and say, whose shirt is better. We could definitely do that.
Come on, Wissota fans. Love me. Love me some me.
I'll say you have a interesting array of shirts, Mr. Jessup. I still want to look at that box and how many more shirts you have to dig through for that.
I'm starting to get near the bottom, so I think right around maybe end of May, early June, I'm going to start the whole campaign to clothe the needy. I am needy of new shirts.
When I
Needy
just
of new shirts, nice.
I just kind of went through my closet a little bit, and I have plenty of shirts for at least a couple of years. Let's just put
Yeah,
it that
between
way.
you and John, you guys must have like 8 totes. I only got 1.
I got a ton.
Mason, can you go back through all of the other episodes and mark down all the shirts I have? So
You
I
That's
don't
can
Becca's
do
start-
job.
it yourself.
Yeah,
That's Becca's
can-
job.
That's Becca's job.
Yeah,
Becca's
Becca, why don't
good at
you
that.
do that?
Yep.
Why
Becca,
would I
you
do it for you?
Becca,
You're
you
in
do
my
that for
list.
all of
me.
us.
Hey,
Well-
you love me. This
This is my
says so.
list.
Yeah,
This
see, but you
says
have to write
do.
it down. Yep, you have to write it down for everybody as
Yeah.
well, Becca.
Yeah,
Yep.
you can't just be
No.
greedy.
You can't just
Yes.
put it in an Excel spreadsheet. You have to
Yes.
write it down.
No, I'm
We
waiting
should
for
have
you
an
guys
Excel
to
spreadsheet.
mess up and double up on a shirt that you've already worn. It's
You
not
just
going to
watch.
be me.
Becca will be the first one that'll mess up.
I
which
think Becca's already worn a hoodie twice.
she has.
No,
Yeah,
I mean, I've worn
Yeah,
this
she
hat
has.
before, I think, but
she really
I
has.
haven't.
Yeah. Well,
It was-
anyways, race drivers, if you have shirts out there, or fans, if you have extra shirts that you want to donate to the needy, aka Jessup,
I
Feel
will
free to-
buy mine.
feel free to get in touch with us, and we will gladly represent you or your favorite driver on the show.
That's a good idea, Mason.
mhm.
So we don't have much racing that we're watching in person, but for a track pack report, what all have you guys been watching over the last week or so?
My weight that is going up.
We've been going to the gym. I don't know how
Oh.
that's possible.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, Jessup,
like-
it's a never ending problem.
I know. It's just I'm on the seafood diet, John. I see food, I eat food.
Yes. Yep. That makes sense.
Ay,
What,
ay, ay.
Mason? What?
As far as
Well,
racing
Mason.
goes, what have you
But
been
honest-
watching?
I was gonna say, but honestly, Mason, there's been a lot of racing going on. You had the Wild West Shootout. You had the IMCA.TV Winter Nationals. You now have racing down in Volusia for the World of Outlaw late models. You have got some great racing happening down in Arizona for the next couple of weeks. So there's a lot going on right now.
By the way, speaking of the IMCA Winter Nationals, we gotta give a shout out to the Pinninger race team for hooking up Dakota Speedway with some sweet fantasy racing prizes over the last couple days of the Winter Nationals. That was pretty cool. I'm gonna have to contact them here soon because sometimes it's tough, Mason. But when you're good, you're good. And I'm good.
What did you win? Like 2 tires or something, or like $100 certificate to one of the tire places?
Yeah, I got 2 $100 certificates to the tires, Palms tires, and then I believe I'm getting funny enough, I'm getting a racing T-shirt.
Well, there you go.
But Jessup didn't actually win. He was the highest of the participants that played the Fantasy Racing Challenge. I actually won a night of IMCA Winter Nationals and Fantasy Racing. I actually finished first overall.
She did, John and Mason. She did,
did.
and she beat me by a few points only because she got attendance points.
Oh,
What?
that makes sense. Those darn attendance points again.
Not
But you know, Mason, I think you'll agree with me on this. Becca's great at pulling these major upset victories, but I'm the type of driver, I'm a points picker. I pick for points for the long haul of a season.
Right. And that panned out really well for you.
So
It did.
speaking of
I mean,
IMCA,
between me and you, we cleared with Soda Country.
and what
That's
did
a
you
good
get for
point.
finishing top 5 in Wasota national points?
I did
Yeah, what did you get?
5th. But that was only because I missed 2 nights at Thunder Bay.
I meant
And that's like-
prize wise.
Prize wise, we didn't really get anything, although
That was-
I got a prize for being third at the
Oh
Wasota
my God.
100. Do you have
That's
a
a
nice,
nice-
cool trophy to flaunt?
No, but I'm going to get 2 new tires to flaunt. How about that, John? And Mason?
We're proud of you, Jessup.
Thanks, John.
Only
So,
some days.
Speaking of IMCA Winter Nationals, I followed that fairly closely, doing the fantasy challenge each night, and then we watched most nights. I don't know if we watched every night, but we followed along pretty closely. A lot of North Dakota guys went down to Arizona and represented North Dakota and the Midwest fairly well. Colin Hibden from Fargo, North Dakota, he picked up 2 of the 7 nights that the IMCA Modifieds won. Tim Ward, who was a former Dakota Classic Modified Tour champion, he also picked up 2 wins down there. Ethan Dodson is another popular name who's raced up here. He picked up a win down there, but our local guys,
You forgot Zach Madrid as well.
well, his
He just
girlfriend is
won
from
the Dakota.
Minot, so yeah, Zach Madrid also did fairly well at Winter Nationals, but bringing it back to our local guys, Eric Laugenschlager, who has been racing IMCA Sport Mods for many years here in the North Dakota area. He raced in a modified and he did pretty darn well. He was always just a spot or 2 outside of the transfer spot in his B main. So he did pretty well for hopping into a modified for the first time. He didn't make the A main, but he was always 1 or 2 spots short of that transfer spot in. I think with more seat time, I think if he were to go down there next year or years to come, I think he'd be making those A mains more often. Brady Biella, he made all but 2 nights. He made the A main all but 2 nights. His best finish was second twice. Stephen Pfeiffer, he also made the A main all but twice down there at Winter Nationals. His best finish was 4th. Cody Schlope made the A main all 7 nights. His best finish was 3rd. And Aaron Turnbull also went down for the second half of Winter Nationals. He kind of struggled those last 3 nights, but his best finish was 12th after finishing 3rd at the Super Nationals. So he did pretty well down there that last night. So Kelly Henderson, Darren Schatz, and Nathan Speeton, they made a lot of A mains as well themselves and finished in, top 10 a handful of times. So overall, our North Dakota boys, or Midwest boys, really just represented us pretty darn well on the national scene.
Yeah, it was kind of a reverse of like what you'd see for like a Dakota Classic Mod Tour, or in some cases like a Tougher Than Dirt Tour. You kind of get the Midwest folk coming down to the Arizona region, and it's making it really tempting to try to go down there one of these winters to see that racing down there. And there was as to quote Jessup, there was a lot of cars down there, wasn't there?
There were.
There was a
There really were.
Yeah, there was a very, very good field.
Mason, I'm going to have to talk to you about copyright infringement.
That's fine. I'll eat that one. Yeah, and so they we'll touch a little bit on the racing that's going on right now a little later in the show. But yeah, along with that Winter Nationals, they also had the Wild West Shootout going on. So we had stuff for the IMCA guys and then stuff for some of the WISSOTA guys. More on the Midwest Mods side down in Vado for the last week and a half or so. And quite a few people that went down there. We had Lucas Rodin was kind of, I would say, the one that performed the best out of the bunch. He got a win in the X Mods there. Nate Reinke was very competitive throughout the week, had some bad luck a couple of nights, but put together some solid runs. One guy that actually impressed me quite a bit was Eric Hauglin, driver number 32. He was pretty fast. He'd get some pretty good draws too, starting up at the front and holding off some of those tough challengers like that race USRA B mods. Man, there's some really stout competition down there. So really good representation the last 2 weeks down at the Wild West Shootout. We had Jason Strand that was down there in the late model. He made a couple of the features too, and I believe he's down there for more racing this weekend. And so that's cool to see that he's been traveling. We also had Scott Binns, Jake Smith, Preston Carr, Jason Grimes, Jory Berg, and Ronnie Novacek. So nice representation down there. And I will say the racing down at Vado was pretty awesome. Like, I don't watch a lot of super late model racing, but especially the last night, that was a excellent race. Did you guys see the highlights of that?
Yeah, it was a very, very good race. What a battle up front for the lead. I mean, you had 5 to 6 cars right there at all times. And at some points, they were 3-4 wide, even, going through turns 1 and 2 and a lot of slide jobs. That was kind of cool to see as well.
I can't remember. There was either just 1 or 2 cautions in that race. And it was so good before that first caution came out. It's like, oh man, I really hope this doesn't ruin the race, but it still kept on being very competitive. And like, I know like John, like you announce and Becca, and you're watching a race that they're going through lap traffic and it's such a great race and a caution comes out. It's just like, such a letdown. Like that happened to the Stampede, I think 2 or 3 times.
Yes, it did, because we had some great battles. Like your Midwest mods, you had your top 5 right there together, and then that caution came out with like 2 to go, and it was like, darn it. It was such a good race on that one too. And then also in other classes, like the mods had the same thing as well. So yeah, so that was those races are exciting to announce, but it's always like when a caution comes out, it's like, damn it, why did that have to happen during that time, right when it was going to get really, really, really good?
Yeah, every time it's just like you get the anticipation building up, and all of a sudden just like, nope, yellow flag. It's like, dang it. But it still was an awesome race. Nice, great start to 2023 with some good racing down there. And then kind of want to transition a little bit out of the racing part of it and kind of talk about a couple of incidents that happened over the last week or two. We had a couple of rough looking wrecks, which thankfully the drivers ended up being okay from both of them. One of them happened at the Chili Bowl. Ashton Torgerson had a very rough wreck that was pretty scary to watch, where he got ejected out of the car, and he was taken to the hospital, and he ended up being okay. The other wreck that I kind of wanted to touch on was Cam Reimers in the sport mods down in Arizona. He actually launched out of the ballpark and ended up on his side. And so
he took out the sign.
He took out the sign too. Like he took out everything.
He pulled a Travis Robertson.
Yep. On one end we had a Travis Robertson. The other one we had a Too Fast, Too Furious ejecto seat moment.
True.
Yeah.
Thank goodness everybody was okay.
Yep.
He won on night 4 of Super Nationals, but the second half, like the night 6, 7, and 8 were super rough for him because he kept winding up in someone else's. What?
Yeah, there's a caution.
I think that was Winter Nationals, not Super Nationals.
Sorry, Winter Nationals. Sorry.
And
whatever.
just like that, Becca has been put to the back.
So that puts
Anyways.
the running order now at John in first, Jessup in second,
No,
Mason
John went to
in
the back.
third.
John went to the back.
Did
Oh,
he?
I have been quietly working my way to the front.
John and that means Mason in first.
Jessup,
in
John,
second?
myself. Okay, now that we got the running order figured out,
Good,
back
good.
to Cam picked up the win on night 4 of Winter Nationals, but the second half of Winter Nationals, night 6, 7, and 8 was really rough for him as he kept winding up in everyone else's mess. So he kept fixing the car, putting it back together, and then ended his Winter Nationals with that awful wreck. As you put it, Mason, out of the ballpark. Just a tough start to his season. But thankfully, the car did its job. It protected him, and he was safe afterwards. He came out on social media a few days later, and he had some criticism. Obviously, he didn't have anything bad to say, but he just had some ideas as to improve some safety features within his car, primarily the window net, because he couldn't get out of the car because the window net was jammed. He couldn't get that release button to come loose. So he couldn't get the window net down. He had to be assisted out of the car. And so then it kind of started some other videos I saw on social media from different chassis builders of how they do their window nets. And so that kind of led to some interesting discussions on social media the days after Winter Nationals. But thankfully, the car did its job. It protected him, and he was able to walk away. And a few days later, obviously, be able to comment to his fans and his sponsors that he was okay and the car did its job.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that because those 2 wrecks were scary for different reasons. Obviously, with Ashton at the Chili Bowl being thrown out of the car, and then Cam almost being trapped in the car that was sitting on its side. And you have like fluids leaking out, gas, and trying to get unstrapped out of the car can be a very scary situation. And all 4 of us kind of like have a unique role. Like when we go to the tracks, obviously Becca and John announce, Jessup and I are behind the camera. I'll start with John and Beck on this. When you're an announcer, when you have a situation like a wreck or something where you're not certain on the outcome right away, what is your approach and kind of what's your mindset like?
Becca, I'll start this one if you don't mind. So I have to give actually kudos to Becca a little bit on this one. We talked about this, the 2 of us, I would say probably around maybe 3-4 years ago now, somewhere within that range, probably about 4 years now since we're entering the 2023 season. And we were watching some basically broadcasts around some other things too in bad wrecks, how to handle bad wrecks directly on there too. And there's kind of twofold to it. So I kind of learned a little bit from Charlie back when Charlie was head announcer on kind of what to do with rec stuff, but also just listening to that, you get some ideas and some other insight. One thing too that you always want to do is you always want to have something in the background. And here's the reason why I say that is because if somebody is truly seriously hurt, or if you're really close to the speedway and you can hear things or you could see things, you kind of want to draw attention away from that a little bit. Just because of the fact of the matter that, and I hate to say this because it sounds really bad, in case somebody gets severely hurt and they're screaming in the car, because you might be able to hear that from the grandstands, especially if you're close, directly on that one too. If you have officials that are yelling from the car, basically to safety personnel to get their, whoever gets there first and blah, blah, on that one too. So you kind of always want to make sure that you've got something maybe covering that a little bit, just to make sure that your fans don't directly hear that and start to panic. You don't want that panic within there, which obviously family members, if they're in the grandstands when it happens, they're gonna panic. I mean, that's just the matter of the situation. But also one thing is you want to reassure the fans as well that that we're doing everything to help that individual at that time. And that's one thing that Becca's done a really good job on, is she's kind of created kind of a script that we can go off of, or I don't want to say maybe kind of just like something that we can utilize as a resource if we needed to, to go through that situation. The other thing too that I've learned over the years during those situations is that if they're working on the car or anything else in that one too, and you don't have something to say, play music in the background. Play something in the background that basically kind of covers up again, kind of that sound barrier. So kind of go through that and put that into place too, until you find out how that individual is doing with anything else. I want to use a couple of wrecks this year. We had a couple examples happen across tracks this year that were pretty serious. For one of them, for instance, we had a couple of really bad legend wrecks over at Dakota Speedway happen this year too, to where drivers rolled off of turns 1 and 2. During that time frame, luckily we're pretty far away from it from the grandstand perspective. But again, we Becca and I would kind of reassure fans that, hey, we've got safety personnel over there, they're attending to the driver. Once we know more, we'll let you know directly about that driver as well. And once we get the all clear, if they are okay, then we'll let you know that piece of it as well. Of course, you don't want to say them directly in those words, because then that might create some panic too, like say, well, we don't know if the driver's okay, or the driver is seriously hurt. You don't want to basically make any type of assumptions on the mic until you know directly what's happening with that situation. And if it's not good, say for instance, like if you have a report that is not good directly in there too, you basically just want to let the fans know during that period of time that, hey, they're still attending to the driver. They may be taking him in for observation or some other stuff on there too, because you never want to let a family member, I hate to say this directly in this tone too, but you don't want to basically ever announce something over the loudspeaker before you inform a family member itself. You don't want to have them hear it from directly the loudspeaker first before something would happen to some individual. That's kind of a rule that I've always kind of played by over the years, from not just an announcing piece of it, but also from being involved in associations and also going through that same area. So that's one thing on there too to say. But yeah, kind of keep it light. Sometimes I know, Becca, we've done even some type of events or even something to keep the crowd interactive. One thing we do over in Jamestown, and they started it when Corey used to announce over there as well, is a rollover fund. So we get fans involved to say, hey, the driver rolled over, bring up money to the tower, and we'll get that to the driver. So that's one thing to kind of keep them engaged while that's happening on the track while they're attending to that driver. So that's one thing on there too. But yeah, we've had some scary wrecks. We had a couple rollovers really bad in Mandan this year. Saw some really scary wrecks over at Fergus Falls this year. During the 100 when I was there in person as well. Some very scary wrecks over in Jamestown this past year too. Several of them with Billy Carroll with the bomber rollover. Obviously the one that comes to mind for me with a really bad wreck over in Jamestown this year with the legend with Dusty Mund on the front straightaway during the stampede, because the car rolled and then started on fire. Luckily, they were over there within it was a couple seconds, the safety personnel were to get him out of the car and help him out. And that was good to see too. So that's kind of something. Sorry, Becca, I know I took most of that as well, but what do you got to add?
Yeah, basically, it's every racetrack should have some sort of plan, or I wouldn't want to call it a script because that just doesn't seem very personable or genuine or sincere during a time of that can be really stressful and scary for a lot of people. But some sort of plan of action as to something that you can tell the crowd that can maybe calm some nerves or reassure them that, whether I always like to mention that, we have safety personnel that, they take classes and seminars and they know how to first treat the driver, make sure the driver's okay, but then get them out of the car and all that stuff, just to add a level of calmness to their nerves that they might be feeling at that time. You definitely don't want to assume anything. That is like one of the worst things that you can do on the mic. Also, but sometimes those like softest of rollovers are actually pretty, depending on their safety, the driver's safety gear, they can be just as serious as like a really, really terrible tumble, where the driver just barrel rolls. So you never want to assume anything on the mic. No information is better than bad information. So as John alluded to, you don't want to be the person that tells the family like, oh, this driver suffered a health,
some type of injury.
Injury. We don't want to be the person that relays that news to the fans and the whole world, especially if you're broadcasting on TV. And you never ever want to announce a fatality at the track. That comes from another, usually at the hospital or something like that. So, but most importantly, every racetrack, you never want the worst to happen, but every racetrack should have some sort of plan when a red flag condition is out on the track, and whether it's as minor as a fire on the track because there's fuel on the track, or if it's something as serious as a rollover. So a plan is always a good thing to have.
Yeah, Becca, that's a good point. You always want to have that safety plan in place, and that's where a lot of tracks appear, and we've seen it across the board. Is that they take winter classes. There usually is a course that gets kind of taken throughout the state or presented throughout the state, to where you get your safety personnel together, and then they go through demonstrations on, okay, this is what happens during this track, and here's your plan of what you should do, or kind of best procedures and practices, almost like a procedures manuals on how to handle those situations, to go through, because some tracks you have your local EMTs from town. Other smaller tracks usually have maybe even some staff from the track that are trained as EMTs that can go out there and help, because twofold on this too, Becca, and this is one area that maybe we didn't touch on directly during this discussion, was that sometimes the injuries or sometimes even the wrecks on the track, you'll have to have safety personnel called, but sometimes it happens in the grandstands. So if something happens in the grandstand side, you kind of want to take that same approach to go through, because if something happened in the grandstand that's a health concern or something that that happened from an injury perspective, you do not want fans rushing over and kind of crowding safety personnel when they're trying to do their job over there as well. So that's one thing that we kind of keep in the back of our minds as well, is what's going to happen in those situations. But again, there's always those plan of actions that are put into place to help out with those situations.
And before we turn it over to Jessup and you, Mason, because you guys have a different aspect to rollovers or serious accidents on the track. It's the off season right now. It's January. We're going right into February right now. The racing season is literally just around the corner. Now is the time to get those safety crews at your racetrack, whether it's your first responders, your track officials, send them to a safety seminar. I would imagine most tracks are in the same boat, where you may have some new faces on your volunteer group. It's always good to have a refresher for your seasoned volunteers, but B, get those new volunteers in those safety classes, because how you go about extracting a driver out of a modified is completely different than extracting a driver out of a sprint car. So those safety seminars, they go through the differences in how you would do that with different race cars. Sometimes, if you have an alcohol-based fuel, sometimes that those can be more likely to combust and start on fire. And sometimes you can't see those fires because of the additives in those fuels. So that's a huge concern. You can't see the fire, but yes, John, methanol. Thank you. But that's a huge concern, because you don't want your volunteers just rushing in blindly to that. So they teach you some of those tips and tricks on how to get the drivers out and all the different car classes. So if you guys have the time, all tracks, if you're listening, tell your racetrack, send your volunteers to these racing seminars, because it can literally save a life.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
I would also add during the off season is the perfect time for like the volunteers, the safe volunteer safety crew and the tracks and the track boards and anyone involved with that. It's the perfect time for them to start going and inspecting their safety equipment. I mean, oftentimes we don't want to use like fire extinguishers. We don't think about having to use that, but it's the off season where you go through the gear, you check out what's still functional, what is still good. What do the fire department, do they need new what do you call them, fire
Extinguishers?
resistant? No, like their actual jackets and pants and
New
helmets and
gear.
stuff. The
Near-
new gear,
yeah.
the uniforms that they use. Are the fire extinguishers like still functional? Because I know they kind of expire. They do. And then here's another dumb one. Does the ambulance actually run? You shouldn't be waiting until the day of opener to make sure your fire trucks and your ambulances actually run. So just little things like that. It's a lot of common sense that doesn't get thought of until it's either too late or it's in crunch time type of stuff that needs to be reviewed and checked.
Yeah, I think that's why it's so important to be talking about safety for like a track perspective and also like a driver perspective. So it's kind of cool that like Cam like kind of shared some of its like his experience and kind of offering some tidbits and it creates some discussion on how we can be better prepared all around on safety measures with the drivers and the tracks as well. And so kind of from the one aspect of like kind of conveying information to the fans live at the event itself. Now I'll kind of go over to Jessup because you deal with like running a live broadcast. What's typically the procedure that you have to follow during situations like that?
Well, the unwritten rules are basically privacy and courtesy to the drivers and family of the drivers during that time. So when you get an accident of severity, let's say, the goal you want to do is to draw off of the actual wreck because you don't want to be exposing a situation that could be life-threatening or very potential for harm or lethal situations, right? So you want to provide the driver themselves like privacy there, and so you pan off and you zoom out. And when I say pan off, you get the car completely out of the camera view. And that's just basically, again, a courtesy act for the driver and their family and friends. That's something I was taught when I first started working with IMCA TV with Barry and his crew. And, you know, it's something you don't really think about. But then when you start watching like the online pay-per-views and then you start seeing it, it's becoming more popular. And it's really just tacky and classless when you zoom all the way into the driver's like compartment and you see that there's an issue and you keep it zoomed in, and it's not a good look.
Yeah, I definitely remember being taught that too when I was working on some of the live broadcasts to kind of just turn away and just kind of wait until you hear information. Otherwise, that you can kind of move back to things. And that
once you get the okay, you can go back in, you can zoom in as tight as you want, as long as you can see that it's like a decent situation and the driver's moving. If the driver's knocked out or anything, and they say he's okay, but he's knocked out or whatever, don't video that. That's, again, tasteless and it's really tacky.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Joe.
I'm gonna go one step further here because I think Jessica brought up a really good point. From a live broadcast, I'm gonna go from the announcer's piece here really quick. So when an accident happens like that, notify your viewers online as well that that's the reason why you're zoomed out and why you're not showing that, because sometimes people say, well, what happened? I can't see it. Well, we don't want you directly to see what happened on there until we get official word. So that's where that comes into play as well. So that's one thing that I know Becca does a really good job on, which is on the mic, that she informs viewers, this is why we are zoomed out. because we do not want to, go through these steps and show this information as need be. So that's one thing that we go through too. So from an announcer's piece when we're on live broadcasts.
And that's one thing I can say that you and Becca really do a good job with. I know Becca said she doesn't want to use the word script. Okay, I will put it in a manner that is respectful for both of you guys, and how it builds up the skills that you guys have here. Is you don't have a script. What you guys do during that time of unsure and unease, you're creating a dialogue to not only the fans within the bleachers, but the ones at home. Like you said, the fans at the track can see what's going on. Maybe not really well, but they can see enough that, hey, something serious is going on. The fans at home, they're going to see the opposite end of the track with cars either parked or nothing around them, and it's super zoomed out. So that's kind of, it goes two ways. It either scares the people at home or the younger fans or the family members at home, and they don't know who's in it. And then the other one is it creates a dialogue of, hey, this is what is happening, and it prevents them from getting frustrated of the not knowing what's going on. And if you can convene this message that, hey, our track members are properly, trained, and they're going to do the best that they can, and we have a first aid crew or an ambulance crew right on scene, and they're addressing the situation, you're building up a positive dialogue between yourselves and the fans who are watching, and it puts a little more of at ease in their mind for just a brief moment, because they're still going to be concerned, but it provides them some knowledge of what's going on.
Yeah, and so from my vantage point, because I'm behind camera too, but I kind of do more post editing. It's never live. And so like I have, I guess, how to say it, the luxury of being able to kind of like cut certain pieces out if need be. And especially when it comes to like serious accidents, for instance, I never have the camera until like pointed towards the accident scene until you either see the driver climbing out of the car and walking away. Usually that's when I would put the camera up and say, like, showing like, okay, the driver's walking away. We can visibly see that like he or she is okay. And then like kind of just an add-on to it. I see photographers do this all the time. Usually like if they get like pictures of the wreck, usually they mention like, posted with permission from this certain driver to be able to post it. And usually like in my case, I either get like a message or I get pulled aside at the pits like, hey, did you catch that on video? Would you be able to post it or things like that? And so I think that's becoming more and more common and prevalent, especially with photographers and videographers, that especially when there's serious accidents like that, that they don't really post anything until they get specific permission from those involved. And so,
well, it's back to what I said. It's a privacy deal.
Yep.
I mean, if one of our family members was in a bad car wreck out on the highway, we wouldn't want videos of it being spread all over the place, or we don't want a picture of a dead body posted on Facebook. I mean, granted, Facebook's got like content blockers to prevent something like that, but it's a privacy thing, and we don't want to. I wouldn't want, if Becca got into a car wreck, I wouldn't want a picture of her being knocked out on Facebook, because that's not going to make her family feel good. It's not going to make me feel good, and it's probably going to upset me that my family member, or in that case, it would be my wife, is being shown in that light, and that's just not a good look for anyone.
Yeah, so it's a good reminder for all of us out there, like when we see stuff like that, just kind of make sure that everything's in order, everything's in a good spot where you can either share news or share however way you want during those tough accidents and situations. And so yeah, but this is the time of year to kind of make sure safety stuff is in order with your race car, your racetrack, your procedures, whatever you have in place, to make sure it's all ironed out before the racing season starts, so we don't have to worry about those precious seconds that it may take for things to come out as best as they can. So kind of transitioning into some of the current racing. I don't have this on the script for my fellow podcasters.
Where is the script?
Yeah, no kidding. It's a struggle sometimes.
What's a script?
There's remind me what the event is going on right now down in Casa Grande. What is that event called? Is it the Winter Thaw or?
Early thaw.
Is that what we're watching? I
Yes.
didn't know the event name, to be honest.
I
just
think
couldn't
it's
know-
the
remember.
early thaw.
All I know is it was at Central Arizona Raceway.
There's quite a few people that we know down there from our area. Who's all
I was
down
quite
there?
surprised.
There's quite a few, especially in the late model division. Also within the both the mod divisions as well. There's quite a few down there.
Yeah, and I believe
Jason-
that's being put on by Don Shaw, who runs the I-94 Sure. Actually, it's not the Sure Steps CU anymore. It's the EMR Speedway at I-94, I believe, is what it's
Yes.
called now.
So in the
Is-
stock cars, it's Trent Greger. Let's see.
Jordan Zilmer,
Yup, Jordan Zilmer. And
Ryan
then
Saturn's down there as well.
Mhm.
Yes.
And then we have Jeff Nowak.
Nowak.
And then there's someone else, I thought.
I know Kevin
Oh.
Gresham's down there. He is a tour racer.
Oh,
yes.
then there's
Kevin Roberts is also a tour racer. Zach Madrid is also a tour racer. In the late models, we have
Dustin
Dustin
Bloom.
Bloom from Kindred, Ryan Corbett. Let's see,
I too can read. Larry Fitzsimmons.
Ben Mickelson,
That's
Oh.
Jason
Mueller.
Strand. I think I don't know if you said it already, but
Cole
Jason-
Denver
Schill, Lance
Nickerson.
Schill, Jason Strand,
Matt
Scott
Sparty.
Ward, Ricky
Paul
Weiss,
Mueller.
Spencer Wilson.
Spencer Wilson.
whose late model is he
Josh
racing?
Zimple. He's
Spencer
racing
Wilson?
Paul
He's racing one
Mueller's
of
late
Paul
model.
Mueller's cars. yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
That was interesting. When I saw him on the entry list, I'm like, Spencer's racing a late model. I don't think I've ever seen him race a late model at all.
Couple of interesting names are there as well. There's Billy Moyer and Ricky
And
Weiss
Schrader.
and Kenny Schrader. So some interesting names are there. It's a fun time watching our drivers be successful.
In limited late models, we have Joey Berg, Scott Banks,
And
Justin
there it is.
Carr. What? Limited late models. It says so right on the
And
phone.
she gets another one, which
Yeah,
brings up
she
the
goes to the
Black
back-
Mod-
Pits.
with
She
I'm from
goes to the
Napoleon.
pits.
Reading is hard. Limited
No, you said
modified.
math is
Wait.
hard for Napoleon. Becca, you're out of
Black-
here.
Black-
Whatever.
This
You
is as
gone.
bad.
In the
Becca
limited
goes 2 for 2
modifieds.
DNFs.
This is as bad as
Modifieds.
when Mason
Mason,
said
make
that
a note
the
of
Saints
this.
Memorial was a modified show.
Mason, make a note of this. Becca has been black-flagged for 2
She-
events straight.
She is disqualified.
Anyways, Joey
He'll be
Berg,
taking
Scott
up the rear
Vince,
of the-
Preston Carr, Devin Fouquet is there. Lane Johnson,
Who else, Becca?
Lucas Rodin, Shane Sabraski, Lance Schill,
Whose car is Luke?
Dan
Shane
Wheeler.
Zabrowski
List of drivers,
racing.
because they're in alphabetical order as well.
what? In IMCA Sport Mods, I had to double check so I actually read it correctly.
Tate Johnson.
Tate Johnson. You must be just hanging out in Arizona.
They're originally from that area.
Yes.
Oh, I never knew that.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense then.
Yep.
So
Yeah, so that's going to be fun to watch this weekend and see how everyone does it. Again, it's cool to see so many people down there from the area. I want to know how they get that much vacation time to take. Some of them like 2 to 3 weeks off. I know a lot of them are farmers, which probably helps. So
They
and
own
some of
their
them
own
have winter
business.
homes down there as well, so they can literally just hop on a plane and go and race, So
And honestly, Mason, with a lot of them, even if they have desk jobs, remote work nowadays is pretty easy. Probably one of the best things that did come out of COVID was the ability to do remote work more from various locations. So they're probably, maybe some of them are even working during the days before they get in the race car.
that's something I would be utilizing, as I'm fortunate to be able to work remotely on some of those weeks when I'm away. And so, yeah, that's a good point.
What?
Apparently Jessup has rolled over. It is a red flag.
No.
By the way, race fans, this is a red flag situation. We want to ensure you that we do have the best
Hold
safety
on.
personnel out there that have been trained
Pan off.
situations
Pan
such as
off.
this. So once again, we will reassure you that this podcaster is okay momentarily.
And now that we've returned from red flag conditions, I want to transition into some of the schedule releases. Hasn't been a whole lot of schedule releasing since we last recorded, but we have a couple of schedules that have been released. We have McLean County Speedway's schedule that has been released, highlighted by the Cole County Classic, which is in that first week of August, which is a week after the Gulf Cup in Mandan. And we talked last year, that's kind of like a perfect weekend that they found.
I love that they have that weekend. Honestly, I think it's a great time because you've got a couple tracks that are still off and it works perfectly.
Personally, I like the McLean County Fair weekend. It's a doubleheader for WISSOTA late models.
That's a good one too.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll be supporting them several times throughout the summer as schedules allow for us. But yeah, I am super excited that the Cole County Classic, I think they have found a permanent home, which is that first weekend in August. They had some fantastic support from all over the state and even the Midwest. They had quite a few drivers in the wingless sprint division that traveled quite a long ways to come and support that show. So I love it. I can't wait. And I hope we get invited back.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a good weekend for them, and plus the fact that it's like the last scheduled race on their schedule means like you better get to this race if you want to experience McLean County Speedway for the rest of the year. And so kind of a double whammy of like a really good weekend for them. So very excited for that. And the other schedule that got released within the last week was Ogilvie Raceway, and they have a big change that they've added for 2023. They are adding quite a few more with sort of late model races. Mr. Jessup and John, who are very much late model fans. So what do you guys think of that?
Well, it's an interesting move. It's not one that I would say probably wasn't foreseen coming, but it kind of caught me off guard. It's an interesting situation within the land of WISSOTA because when we were at the meeting, they kind of pointed out there's not a lot of tracks to choose from. Once like you get Friday is hit pretty hard, then Saturday there's a couple tracks, and then Sunday there's like almost no tracks. And so adding another Saturday option will be interesting to see what happens and to see where cars end up going, because you got Hibbing, you've got Cedar Lake, and then probably one other track too, that
Miller.
Got Miller.
So that's, and whatever's out west too. But it's interesting. I think it'll be a good thing. Hopefully it helps promotes the growth of WISSOTA late models. And I think it could be really good. And I think it could also really hurt a couple tracks too. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Jessup on that one too. I feel like it was so late model car count here, just kind of in the North Dakota area, the last about 2 years, just speaking from the Grand Forks side, it has grown. I mean, there's a lot more a pool of drivers right there to choose from as well. And we've seen even with like Proctor's car counts, Hibbing's car counts, they have gone up as well over the last, maybe over the last year for sure, kind of in that area. So I think overall, I'm hoping it's a good move. I would say directly in there too, because with the way that the late model car count has started to, kind of, they're building that class back up. It'd be nice to get some, some new talent over there as well. And then maybe some drivers that didn't have the opportunity to jump up to that class that would like to jump up to that class and run it would be interesting, because Mason and I can speak to this by watching some of the young guns that have actually transferred to late models full time here in the last couple of seasons. There's been a pretty good rookie pool that have come up. So it'll be interesting to see here too on how that continues.
It's always good too, John, to see that the premier WISSOTA class getting more options to race in WISSOTA country.
I agree.
Well, it's interesting that especially when you have like a rookie driver that's kind of transitioning into that new class, whether it's late models or some other class, you kind of need that seat time and having another option on a different night of the week instead of just everyone kind of conglomerated on one night. That helps a lot and kind of helps kind of build up that seat time, gets them more up to speed quicker and quicker.
The other thing that's going to be interesting about this, and I guess I really just thought about it now, is with the reduction of the number of late model shows necessary to qualify before you start tossing races out for national points, This opens up a very big window for kind of that mid Minnesota type of drivers area, because if you think about it, they really only had one choice to go to for a Saturday night show. They could either go race NASCAR over at Cedar Lake, or they could go up to Hibbing, and then if they were really gung-ho, they could go to Miller, but that's not likely to happen. So it really could shake up the points this year.
Yeah, that's another thing. I forgot completely about that. That's interesting to
The 20 shows, it'll be interesting to see, because like Jessup said, I mean, there's several tracks that run late models, weekly, but just a few to pull from. Otherwise, you're going to be running Challenge Series shows. You're going to go out of WISSOTA country to run other shows and other touring series, or you might even travel a little bit to go to an NLRA show, depending on where they're running during that period of time too. So but typically at those shows, the Challenge Series, the NLRA, your late model car counts are a little bit higher during those shows too, with the amount of cars that are in attendance. So sometimes if you're running for national points directly on their one too, it's easier to run maybe on those weekly side of it to run for a track championship as well.
Yep, both very good points. I'm kind of this thing that stuck out to me was kind of looking at the early schedule, like April racing. I'm really hoping that April kind of pans out so that we get some racing. And I know we have some early races scheduled over in North Dakota. Last year I went down to Iowa. I don't plan on going to Iowa this year, but it'd be nice to kind of go a little bit closer to home and kind of get some early season action down there. So hopefully the weather in the spring helps us out for some early season racing.
Yeah.
So one of my new favorite YouTube channels right now that I love to watch every day is a new weather channel. It's not important who or what it is, but it is projected that February and March will be warmer than usual. So hopefully all of this snow that we have up here in the Midwest will be melted so that we can go racing right away when April comes around. So fingers crossed that the weather patterns hold and we keep having this warmer than usual weather.
Becca, I know exactly what you're watching, and I am also very much involved with weather. I follow it quite closely, especially when Mason's around. And one thing involved here as well is that yes, temperatures are supposed to be above average, which is great. A little bit warmer will be nice too. But that corresponds as well with higher precipitation is also supposed to be forecasted. So
rain is fine.
Yeah, but I think it might not be warm enough to rain. So we'll see here.
Rain will melt the snow quicker.
Do you need me to go down south for a couple months? Is that what you need me to do?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then again, racetracks, like we mentioned to you, if you want a little added moisture to your facility, either during a race night, hopefully it's not when you run a huge special, but for sure, check it out. Mason is there available to come to your track to provide some added moisture. It doesn't even have to be from even rain. Sometimes it's water truck incidents. So, I mean, if he's there, you're probably going to have some added moisture into the facility that night.
Plan for a tacky setup if you can race.
Yep.
Plan to pack the trailer and go home.
Yep. Be sure you have extra food available because you might be eating in the trailer while it's downpouring, even though there's a 0% chance of rain.
Bring extra friends and pit crew so that they can all, scrape mud and, all that good stuff. So
make sure you have chains so the tractors can pull you out.
Yes. Yep. More likely you are going to be packing the truck.
Yeah. Invest in some muck boots too. I will say, because the way the season played out last year, I understood that there was a tire shortage out there. And so I was trying to do everything in my power to make sure that we didn't go through as many tires as we had done the previous year, because it was pretty dry in 2021.
2020. Mason.
Wow.
What?
Caution on the facility as well.
Why is there a caution?
Because the driest year was 2020.
It was also dry in 2021 too.
21 was also dry, but 2020 was very dry. So, yeah, Mason.
That's a ticky-tack call.
So
It's one of those no fault calls, Mason. I
Yep.
guess you're going to the rear.
you're going to the
But
rear no
slightly
matter
ahead
what.
of Becca because Becca got sent pit side.
So our new running order now is Jessup, me, Mason, and Becca's still pit side arguing with officials. She's already been kicked out of the facility.
Who the heck is the official on this?
God,
So-
the
Oh, I-
officiating sucks at this track.
Guys, it really does.
Now, Mason, we have one other thing though too. So this it's a great time. Again, racetracks, you are releasing your schedules. So race fans, you can start planning your trips as well and planning your events for the year. And they're in the process of getting it updated. It's Dakota Dirt. Again, check out your one-stop shop. Again, one-stop shop for everything North Dakota racing news, results, weather forecasts, and much more. Again, that's dakotadirt.org. You don't even need to venture out to those other platforms, the wannabes. Just don't even go to them. You can just check out dakotadirt.org. They're also on social media platforms. Again, dakotadirt.org. Check them out.
You stress me out.
Uh,
I'll say Dakota Dirt should be keeping pretty well up to date because there hasn't been too much released yet. How is that coming, Mr. Dakota Dirt?
I think we've pretty much put all the Western tracks out. I think we just got to update a few things with Thunder Mountain, and then we'll be good out there. East side, I think we're pretty good. I think I have to put in the Cheyenne River track schedule, and then we'll be up to date out there. And then I think we're pretty good.
What was that track? I've never heard of that.
And just like that, Jessup is going to the back of the back.
Can you repeat
Cheyenne
that
River?
name?
It's
Cheyenne
Cheyenne Speedway.
Whatever. They've changed their names 4 times in the last 2 years.
No.
And once again,
that's
it's one of
also
those no fault cautions, and Jessup has gone to the back
As long as I'm not
big
last,
pieces
it's
of
good.
misinformation in a row.
because
Another
Oh,
what happened
caution.
hold
the
on. You
caution-
can't call a caution on a caution. So
They
Becca,
haven't changed their name in the last 2 years.
They haven't.
hold
Two
on. Let's
pieces
go.
of misinformation back to
Becca,
back.
how many
Just like
times-
me.
Guess what?
Oh my
You
god.
Yes.
get the
You
black
don't get a
flag.
say.
Guess
You
what
don't have
happened
a-
here? Okay, so race fans and drivers,
Oh
let's
my
tell you
God.
what truly happened on the track. So there was a caution that came out, but the reason why this caution came out was because Becca was kicked out of the facility. So she was trying to get herself out of the track, and she ran into Jessup on the way out of the racetrack. So we had to call a caution, and unfortunately, Jessup's car is pretty wrecked, so he has to go tail end no matter what because he got ahead.
Okay, I'll take the tail end, but I'm just gonna say I have one.
Oh yes, yeah, you only
Yeah,
have one
that's
because
fine.
Becca was zooming out of the pits and just hit you.
Yep, reckless abandon from Becca and just Rekka.
This is
As-
where Becca just came out.
This officiating sucks.
It
What?
does.
This
Yeah.
track
Mason, you
sucks.
would agree they've changed their track name a lot.
No,
no,
not really.
Yes,
Not
no,
really.
It's been between Cheyenne River and Cheyenne.
and
There's not a lot of variation to change there either.
They have changed their logo a handful of times in the last
Thank
20
you.
years. In the last 20 years, not 2. Mason,
can
put
put
us
that in
back
the
on track,
proverbial.
please.
So we somehow ended up with a second red flag of this podcast. So we'll try to get set up for like a green, white checker shootout or
why is
whatever
she
we
throwing
got left.
another one?
Well, he referenced red
You are
flag.
disqualified.
Yeah, Becca's already
Mason.
done. Like
Okay, just-
finished. Done.
Second red flag of the podcast on episode 2. Boy, we're gonna have a rough go of this season.
So, Mason, I just want us to point out here, just because during the bloopers of this of the beginning of the year, that we kind of got into the topic of the definition of patriarch, and an individual was very strong-willed and said that it was not used correctly. And another individual who used it said, no, you are incorrect, and used the exact definition or general definition of it, to which this got brought up again. And the definition, noun, definition 1, second down under Google, a person or thing that is regarded as the founder of something. I believe somebody owes somebody an apology. We're waiting.
And just like this, to let all of our race fans and viewers know, and drivers as well,
Later.
this individual also thought that Indianapolis was in Illinois.
She also thought we were in Indiana when we were still sitting in Illinois.
Oh, goodness.
Moving on. Let's
YOLO.
go on, Mason.
You can
Moving
cut
on.
all of that.
Moving on into our closing thoughts or our green right checker, whatever you want to call it. What are some projects that we are working on over the next few weeks? How about Becca, since you've gotten a rough go of it lately, what are you working on?
Whew, okay, well, lately I have been working on a brand new website for Dakota Speedway. It's been about 10 years since they've had a website refresh, so it's truly needed. I also felt the old website lacked a couple of what I would consider important things. So I've been busy mapping out a brand new website, something that's more mobile friendly. Also been writing content for this new website, doing a little bit of racing history research, and just going through like hundreds and hundreds of our official track photographer, Lane Mutter of LPT Images, just going through all his photos and just picking and choosing different things for different pages. So working on a brand new website. Hopefully it's all my hard work is for naught, but fingers crossed I'll be launching in a couple weeks. Also, I am prepping for the Jamestown Speedway Racing Banquet. And I've been texting John at least once or twice every week for the past couple weeks now to send me photos. So hopefully, this is a little reminder, John, hint, hint, send me those photos. John and I were lucky enough to be asked to MC, so we'll be doing that in a couple weeks. I believe that is February 25th. I'm also digitizing a lot of my racing statistics and files. Been around racing since 2008, and I've been keeping track of winners and track champions and all this racing history and stats and facts, and they're all in these binders that go in my backpack. And if you've seen me at the track, yes, my backpack is as heavy as it looks. So I'm trying to lessen my load and just trying to digitize a lot of this stuff so I can just look it up online and through my computer and whatnot. So doing that right now. And I've also been scheduling and interviewing our local Dakota Speedway drivers for Dakota Speedway TV, a little off-season content as they get ready for the upcoming racing season, as they are working on their cars right now. So got a couple of them done already, got a couple more scheduled. So hopefully those interviews will be rolling out real soon. So super busy these first few weeks of the new year, but it's been making time fly. So hopefully racing season will be here before we know it.
Yeah, sounds like you got a lot of work, but yeah, it's gonna be coming out in the next few weeks. It's gonna be exciting to see. Mr. John Brecko, what have you been working on?
So I am, as you guys know, I'm an accountant by day. So that is my day job. So I have been putting in a lot of hours at the office here because we are in year end. So year end for us is definitely probably the busiest time frame out there. So I've been at the office. Took the afternoon off actually this afternoon as we're taping on a Friday here directly. And other than that, it has been straight in the office for the last 13 days to get stuff done and get stuff prepared. So it's nice to be having kind of a little bit of a break. So this weekend, I'm going to get caught up on stuff. Like Becca had mentioned, photos for the drivers. I actually have those downloaded. I have been downloading those here today. So Becca's going to get an email from me here tonight that says they're ready to go and ready to be utilized. We're still missing a couple drivers, but we'll get those photos. I have no ands, ifs, or kind of buts about that. We'll get those down as well. Now, the other thing though too is starting to update things for 2023. So it's kind of a good time in the off season to lay kind of low with stuff, but now that that everything is getting ready to be organized and ready to be restarted, it's time to get MRP updated and ready to go for driver registration. So drivers can start registering for the new year, get the links out there for where they can purchase their license for the sanctioning body as well. That's another area to look into. And then as well as get your schedules ready on your website. So that's another area, and also get them ready for Facebook side. So that's been some stuff I've been on my plate here to do here towards the end of January to get caught up here for the 2023 race season as well. Now, from a personal perspective, directly from like a racing thing. So I have also, like Becca had mentioned, you've got a lot of statistics and results and everything else in that one too. I have also been updating my information here to make sure I started it in December to get my stuff in there from 2022. So I have all of statistics tracked and everything else on there. Also to make sure that we've got everything in line for the upcoming season. Just kind of some tidbits and some notes out there, to basically when we're announcing off on a driver to note as well. I've also been putting together lists to see, drivers that have changed classes, drivers that might have a new chassis, which, we'll find out a lot about that here in April timeframe when we hit the track for the first time. So we can start getting those organized and noted as part of test and tunes for opening nights.
Very good. It's a fun, exciting time. And hopefully you get a little more free time from work once things settle down a little bit over the next week or two.
Yeah, it should settle down. Obviously, I'm hitting peak bowling tournament season timeframe. And since I'm back into that after recovering from knee surgery, we're going to be hitting bowling tournaments here really hard upcoming in the end of January through all of February. March will be kind of a little bit lower from a bowling tournament perspective, and then we hit it really hard again in April before we hit full on racing season starting up towards the end of April.
Yeah, so John seems like he's kind of one of the busier guys around this time of year, which is kind of different for a lot of us racing folk. Jessup, what are you working on, or what do you have planned coming up?
Right now, we're in the final stretches of my master's degree. So basically, in the final it's really the final project, but it's like a prep course for it, which is basically writing it, and then the final course where you build up a presentation for it, and then you actually present it. So that should be done by the end of the summer. And that's basically a lot of focus and trying to not lose my sanity down where I work. And then just renewed the ownership over DakotaSpeedway.tv, the site naming rights, and then a couple other little site naming rights stuff we had to take care of. Actually, just today, I got to get in touch with the board about that. Some interesting stuff that I wasn't quite aware of until today that needed to be addressed, and it is also being addressed. Other stuff that we need to do is just look at our Dakota Speedway TV video gear and stuff, kind of clean that up. Maybe do some updating on some of the equipment, get a second piece of equipment just to make sure we have a backup so we don't have a couple issues like we had last year. And outside of that, that's really about it. Also got to do a couple little updates on Dakota Speedway, not Dakota Speedway, but Dakota Dirt, and go through the schedule a little closer, update some page information for each track on there. And then really just, I would like to start writing on it again, highlight some stuff that's coming up. But that's about it for racing stuff, life stuff, just work, masters, reffing hockey, and making sure Becca and the pets don't go insane and don't make me go insane.
There you go. I'm sure that takes a lot out of you.
Yeah, I leave to go to work at 5:30 every morning, and when I leave, Becca's sleeping. Get home, Becca's still sleeping. No, I'm joking, but
I'm usually dragging your ass to the gym when I get home. So
she is, and she's been really good about that, and I definitely appreciate that, because apparently when you get older, staying healthy and in shape is not as easy as it once was. I mean, who knew you couldn't eat a full pizza at about 10:45 at night and just go to bed and then not have any after repercussions of it.
Yep, that's a great point. It's good to have some good habits. Yeah, it's been a busy couple of weeks. I've been trying to grind out. I've got several requests for highlight videos, so that's kind of my main focus right now. I'm starting to shift more into scheduling some interviews, so hopefully we get some interviews lined up for the next couple of weeks from drivers from around the region, whether it's here in North Dakota or a couple over in Wisconsin. I plan to reach out to, and so that's going to be some content for the Facebook page and hopefully YouTube. And so otherwise, gonna try to work on getting better at my video editing skills and kind of dabble a little bit more into that. So that's kind
Nice.
of what the off season is for me, to kind of get better at Minecraft and kind of improve on some stuff and hopefully get some new equipment too. Need to get some newer GoPros and another better quality camera for recording.
Mm.
Yeah, you definitely need some newer GoPros because, there's definitely some drivers out there that always want those GoPros.
Yeah, and quality nowadays is getting higher and higher, and so I gotta keep up on and step up my game every year. Before we get into some wins of the week, if we have any, do want to send out our thoughts and prayers to Kyle Preston, Midwest Mod driver, 8K out of Fergus Falls, Minnesota, who passed away unexpectedly last week. No details, just tough news to hear of another young driver passing away. So thoughts and prayers go out to the family and friends of Kyle Preston. So for wins of the week, anyone have a winner or something that they would like to highlight from this last week? I got one, so that's why I put it on there.
I have one.
Go ahead, Becca.
Oh, I didn't think I get to go first. I actually have several, but I'll just go with one for now. My first win of the week goes to Colin Hibden, one of our local North Dakota Midwest boys. He went down to IMCA Winter Nationals, picked up 2 of the 7 nights down there. So really good show for him, and a great way to start off his racing season this year in 2023.
Yep, he looks really stout to start the year. I'm wondering where he's going to be racing this summer. I assume he might be up there at least for a little bit, but I'm assuming he's going to be traveling quite a bit too.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where he all hits up and where he goes to.
Yep. John or Jessup, you got a winner?
Jessup,
Go ahead, John.
Jessup looks like he's kind of lost.
Yeah. Been kind of
That's
a hectic week.
That's okay if you don't have a winner. It's
I'll
early
throw
in
it
the
this
season.
way. Right. I will say right now, my winner of the week are the World of Outlaw Late Model Series, with the recent commitment by Bobby Pierce to run the to become a platinum member with the World of Outlaws this year. We'll see how long that lasts, because there's a lot of behind the scene chatter that it's only going to be for the first part of the season, but hopefully it's all season. It would make for definitely a very exciting rookie class and a battle for rookie of the year if he ran the full year. But you know what? I would say him and Devin Moran picking up his second win at Volusia tonight. So going back to back, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that was some big news this week. That's pretty cool. I will say this, if Bobby Pierce, if you're listening, you got to stick around until you get at least to the Fergus Falls swing so Jessica and I can come and watch you live.
Yes.
By the way, Mason, I plan on hitting that swing as well.
Perfect. It's going to be a party.
I do plan on hitting
Actually-
that as well. Becca's not invited because it's just a guys' weekend.
It's boys weekend, Becca. It's for the
Actually-
boys.
Won't
World of
we be
Outlaw
seeing
Late Models
him
at Fergus
in a
is for the
couple of
boys.
weeks?
Well,
Won't
yeah,
we-
but that's
Won't we be
different.
seeing him in a
Yeah, but
couple
we
of
won't have
weeks?
John.
But it's not local.
Yeah.
Hey, we're packing the track. Who cares?
It makes a difference, Becca.
Yeah, hey, let's talk about
It
that after we
truly
get
makes
through the
a
John,
difference.
John, just stop talking and tell us your win of the week.
There's my winner, Becca. Becca just got the
Becca
win of the week.
Do you want to talk at all this year on the mic? Or do you just want to
I
be
probably won't be on the mic depending on the track, so we'll see.
Yeah, that's a whole nother issue.
and just like that, the fans have gone crazy.
I'm sure they are. There's a handful. I know that.
Becca, you can stop talking now because you have nothing good to say, so you don't need to say anything good at all. Or anything at all. That would even be better. Just mute yourself
Just for you,
altogether.
John. Just for you, John.
So, but you're not muting yourself. You just don't listen. So, but yes, my win of the week. So my win of the week goes over to a big event as well, the Chili Bowl. So I watched the highlights from the Alphabet Soup on Saturday and also went through on some of the qualifying nights and watched the A main, and a very, very good event once again. Very good racing throughout the fields, a lot of action throughout the event. And just kudos down there to everybody in the Tulsa area as well, because you know what, that's a huge event that helps the town each and every year. And to get over 370 drivers back into that event again this year is just kudos to them. With great racing, great action, and just an overall fun week again. And I know people are already looking forward to having that week again here in January of 2024. So so overall, just a very good time, but kudos to the Chili Bowl. The Chili Bowl lived up to its name again this past year and produced some great racing action.
Yeah, this was the first year I watched a little bit more of the Chili Bowl, and yeah, it was an interesting time. I mean, it ran late into the night. It's a long event on that last day, especially, but it's really fun to follow for sure.
It's funny when you watch it and you're like, okay, what letter are they going to start with for the alphabet soup?
Yeah.
So it's always funny. It's like, are they going to have to actually invent new letters into it? For instance, is it going to be past a Z main? Is it going to have to go to like an AA main and then a Z main and then a Y main and everything else? So that's kind of cool to see.
Would that be the Aaron main?
So it might be, but it could be.
No.
Boy.
No, I thought that was good.
I
Sure.
have
Becca,
quietly.
again, we don't need to hear anything from you.
I will say, jeez, I will say regarding the Chili Bowl, it's fascinating that certain individuals spoke out about it and boycotted the event because they didn't feel that it was not a high enough prize purse for them to be there, and it did just as well without them. And we got to see the actual talent of dirt track racers, such in the USAC and the sprint car world and the late model world, show off and be highlighted rather than certain individuals who can buy a ride or buy a ride from the top teams.
Good point. Yeah, there's a lot of racers I didn't recognize fully, but kind of like digging a little deeper. It's like, oh yeah, these are some of the racers that you kind of find around your local track, just in their like regional pockets. So yeah, another cool reason to tune into the Chili Bowl. The win I have for the week is I got to share my screen here. And so, so we just talked about Mr. Dustin Bloom was one of the drivers that went down to the Casa Grande Central Arizona Speedway, had some mechanical trouble on the side of the road on the way down there. And as you can see, there's a whole horde of drivers and racers that stopped to make sure he was able to get back on the road and get down to Arizona to be able to continue to race. And so that was pretty cool. I thought that was really cool to see on Facebook that everyone kind of stopped to make sure that Dustin was all right, that he got taken care of, and that he's down there racing and having a good time. Actually, I think he almost won the other night. I believe he was running up in the front, led the lion's share of that race. And so kudos to Dustin Bloom and kudos to everyone that helped him get back on the road.
I love our racing family.
Yep.
It is pretty tight,
Always
isn't
the
it?
family. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So as our last little tidbit before we sign off, Becca, Jessup, do you want to kind of give a peek into what's coming up for us in the next couple weeks?
Mason, Jessup, and I will be hopping on a plane and flying south to Florida mid-February, the February 16th to the 20th to be exact. And we will be hitting up the Volusia Speedway for February, what do they call it? Dirt Nationals? Anyways,
Winter
no, it's not Winter Nationals. Anyways,
dirt,
we'll be going to Volusia
dirt car
Speedway.
nationals,
Dirt car nationals.
dirt in December, dirt
No.
in November,
No,
dirt on the ground,
no,
nationals,
no.
the nationals.
We will be going to Volusia at least one, maybe
Gator
2
Nationals.
nights.
Ooh.
No,
It is. They
and
have the Gators there.
hitting up the World of Outlaw late models at Volusia. And it just so happens to be the same weekend as the Daytona 500. So we'll be hitting that up, enjoying some Florida sun. We might do a 5K. We'll see. It's literally the town over. So get some exercise and,
Hey, guess where we're
Whatnot.
going? Let's get to the good parts here.
wait, what?
One, we're gonna be in Florida, so that's cool. Two, we're gonna hit a Waffle House to have American experience a true piece of Americana.
Mason
Three-
has never been to the Waffle House.
Really?
So
You've
we're
never been
gonna
to a Waffle House?
pop that
Wow.
cherry.
No,
I'm excited. Hopefully, we get to see a fight or something. It'd be a true Waffle House experience.
All righty then. I've driven past
else
many
we going?
waffles, but never stopped there.
Wow. How unpatriotic.
I agree.
Well,
I don't.
Where else
I-
are we going, Jessup?
Well, we're going places to Daytona and the beach.
Mhm.
Mainly the beach. Might go take a nap on the beach. Hopefully, they don't push me back into the water.
been out to the Atlantic Ocean once, and the last time I was there, I took a 4-hour nap.
Cool.
Ooh.
We're gonna. We could bury Mason and make him look like a mermaid.
That's an idea, I guess. Sure.
We'll put that on the list of things to do.
Yay!
We'll see if it happens.
Yeah, so you might see, I don't know if we'll go live at all, but you might see a little bit of a vlog of some sort from our adventures down in Florida, which I think would be quite interesting.
We'll be packing the track,
Yeah.
both on dirt and asphalt.
Well, we haven't bought tickets to the 500 yet.
Not worried, we'll get them.
Yeah, but
Details,
we said
details.
we said the same thing about the fan zone, and we didn't get those either before they bumped up to 200 apiece.
It's the Daytona 500. It seats like 400,000 people. We'll be fine.
I don't know. I'm
It's
just
actually like
concerned.
275 because I know John gave me a look.
What? It already dropped?
Mason, yes. So race fans, we are
How
going
am I
to.
supposed to pack this track if it's already packed?
Yeah, the 500 sold out. We'll be fine. I'm not worried about it. We'll buy tickets online. But we are going to Florida in February to hit up some dirt track racing and some NASCAR racing and pack those stands.
Let's see if Becca knows the other classic cars that we'll be racing when we go to Volusia.
Isn't it like super modifieds?
Well,
Close.
basically, yeah, big block. Yeah, big
Yeah.
block modifieds. And then World of Outlaw late models, I believe, correct?
Mhm,
Yep.
So I've never seen big block mods, so that's gonna be a new thing for me too.
mhm.
hmm
So with that, I think that'll do it for episode 2 of season 2. As we said at the beginning, be sure to give us a like and share on Facebook. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel that now carries the episodes, and subscribe to us on the audio platforms of your choice. And so give us a 5-star review. Let us know what you think and what we should talk about leading up to the season. Until then, we hope to see you out there packing the tracks.